The Chapter Dive. Today's guest, Cheryl Crumb of Cheryl Crumb Associates. On Behind the Book, let's dive in. I'm Heather Andrews, and on Behind the Book, we journey beyond the cover. On each episode, I dive deep into the minds of authors, unlocking the mysteries behind their literary creations. Discover the stories behind the book exclusively here with me. The Chapter Dive. What does that mean in the world of Cheryl Crumb and Cheryl Crumb Associates? Welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much, Heather.
Perfect. Previously, we had talked about the rule of Crumb in all things culture. So when we talk about the Chapter Dive, we're going to talk a little bit more about I call it the playwright, because that's how you laid it out in your chapter of the Culture Revolution book, which went #1, is climbing today as we record this. Yay! What made you write the chapter in the way that you did, like scene 1, act 1, scene 1, and really do it and then calling it the cultural twist with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde?
I think I remember last time when we talked, Heather, telling you that this was a middle of the night explosion in my mind, and I was dreaming it. I was dreaming it in play form, and I grabbed my iPad, which was right next to my bed, and continued to write for the next 2 hours. So I wanted to tell the story of a senior leader who is nearing the end of his career, not quite at the end, but feeling justifiably proud of the results, but also wondering what's next. And he has a new president who's coming into his life, who is all of a sudden questioning all of the successes he has, and instead is looking at things that the fearless leader thought really to be unimportant, like people engagement and high turnover and lots of complaints, because he was making his numbers. So I dreamt it as a play, and I enjoyed my dream so much that I wanted everybody else to dream along with me.
You just are such a beautiful sense of humor, and I love talking to you.
Thank you.
So as you moved through the scenes in this, how did you come to label it, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde?
I was examining this character, and I do a lot of coaching. I've coached hundreds and hundreds of people for the last 30 years. As we said before, coaching was even a thing. And every coaching assignment starts out with some kind of self-examination, self-awareness.
Right.
I don't believe that you can be a leader of teams or people or even oneself without being aware of who you are, what your priorities are, what your preferences, your strengths, your weaknesses. And most of us are blind to those, and we're much more predictable than we think.
Yeah.
So it was important to me that this leader, I won't call him a leader, let's call him a manager, because that's what he started out. This manager went through an exploration process.
Okay. Yeah. And what did he find along that exploration process? Not to give the ending away, but what did he find?
Great and great question. So I like to use an instrument called McQuaig, and I've worked with McQuaig for 17 or 18 years. I think it's the best validated, certainly relevant, reliable, and it measures individuals on 4 trait scales.
Yep.
Their power, people, pace, structure. And so this individual, this character, this manager, was not surprised to find out he was very dominant, very analytical, very driven and independent. I mean, those were the qualities that made him successful. So he looked, I like to explain it like the front of hand, back of hand. So he looked at himself and saw the front of hand positive qualities. He was a take charge. He was a decision maker. He was an individual who made sure that deadlines and urgencies were met. But there's a back of the hand, invisible to him. And all of a sudden, it showed revealed to him that he was seen as a tyrant, that he was an interrupting, he was an individual who micromanaged, he was appearing insensitive and careless. So his world became open when he realized that it wasn't just the front of hand view that he had, and that perhaps his behavior was impacting culture.
I love that. Wow. Yeah, you are correct though. We were just talking about this the other day about how others see us. Like we think, oh, I'm sitting in my big office and I'm so good. But yet, how are you perceived by others? And I remember when I first started in management and healthcare, that was one of the first, I think it was a culture class I went to at the university, and they were like, ask how you are perceived.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, that was probably one of the biggest learning experiences, because it was like kind of like the good, I don't want to say the ugly, but then there was the things that, people might have misunderstood.
That's right.
And that to me was probably one of the biggest learning pieces that I ever learned.
Absolutely. And I'm encouraging all of my coachees, to ask those questions as well, because they're really in a partnership. It's not just being a manager, but helping them understand the difference between a manager and a leader. A manager is a title.
Yeah.
A leader is a choice.
Absolutely. I love that.
Yeah. And, leaders help us get from here to there.
Yeah.
Not knowing necessarily how to do it.
Yeah.
I started studying 30 years ago the work of Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner in their book, The Leadership Challenge, which is, still bestseller on the shelves today, and probably the 18th or 20th edition. And what they talk about is, leaders in their choice. Leaders help people see the vision. They enable others to act. They model the way. They challenge the process, and they celebrate.
Yeah.
That's not what managers do.
No.
And so back to my character, my Mr. Hyde, he discovered that he was a manager, but he was not a leader.
Got it. Yeah. And understanding that is key, because like you might be a representative of the people and finding those strengths and following those innate pieces, but just working from that place. I call it, when I started my publishing company, I was very proud that I got to bring in my editors and my graphic designers and my formatters and have them work for their space of genius. And we had a great running company because everybody got to do their thing and just operate from that space of creative and get paid for it. I mean, like how much better can it be?
Exactly. Well, and it makes me think, what do I want people to feel after they've read this chapter, after they've read the whole book, because the book is, an incredible collection of perspectives. But it made me think back to when I, was in university and working in my first jobs, and they were terrible jobs.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking of culture. I was trying to make $5.62 an hour back then. But I had jobs. I worked for Kelly Girl. I'm not sure whether
I remember Kelly Girl. Yeah.
So one of my first jobs
was the recruitment or something. They filled positions.
And they assigned you into various jobs that might only be of short term. So I had two memorable jobs, not memorably good jobs, but one, I was a dental assistant at a dental convention where my job was to have an apparatus in my mouth as I was lying in a dental chair for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And there was no culture. I was only a piece of furniture to the people at that convention and to the dentist. I was never thanked. I was never invited for an opinion. I just had my mouth open, and I was chosen because I have a big mouth. I also, in Kelly Girl, had the opportunity to work for a food product company whose name I won't share because everyone has this name in their refrigerator or drawer, kitchen drawer, but it was like Mad Men. I was a secretary for 2 weeks, and I had to call my male boss, because all bosses were male. I had to call them sir. I had to serve coffee and tea every 2 hours. And I was told that I needed to wear my skirts shorter than my long blonde hair at the time. I was never invited for any of my erudite university opinions. I was treated as an object. So although I didn't know it at the time, that was a culture. So when people read our book, I want them to know that they can choose a culture that is different from that.
I love that. That is so good. Oh, I can't even. But you're right. Like, and just picturing you with long blonde hair and a short skirt, like, yeah, it's a great visual. But you are correct, though. I remember working years ago, because we come from the same generation, and I remember it being acceptable for certain behaviors, and that was the culture.
That was the culture.
That was the culture.
That was the culture. Now we have a choice.
Yeah.
And I want individuals, when they're looking for their next role, to realize that they're looking for fit, not just in the job, but in the boss, in the culture, and in the team.
Yeah.
Because together, that's where we're either going to fly or we're going to sink.
Exactly.
And we can choose that.
Yeah. And I think one of the big points in that, and I think it came from Caitlin Bullock's chapter, was, sometimes you might be a unicorn, but you might not be a unicorn in that company.
That's right.
And you might need to move. And once again, when it goes back to that self-respect, that self-perspective, it's, I'm not a good fit for here. It's time for me to go.
It's time for me to go.
Yeah. And that when you start moving those questions and those answers,
right,
there is another space for you where you can thrive.
And behavior matters. Behavior creates culture.
Absolutely.
And our response, we are in control of our response.
Absolutely. Where can people find you on social media?
Well, I'm certainly hoping you're going to be looking for me. You can find me at ccrumb.com. You can find me on LinkedIn at Cheryl Crumb. You can find me on Facebook, Cheryl Crumb, and my business page, Cheryl Crumb Associates. So
excellent.
Please look me up.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So you've heard it today from Cheryl Crumb with more crumbs of wisdom as we did a deep dive into the behavior of her chapter. See you on the Behind the Book next time. It's been a literary voyage here on Behind the Book. My sincerest thanks to our featured authors for letting us peek behind the curtain. I'm Heather Andrews, urging you to keep exploring the vast universe of literature. Until our next chapter, happy reading.